Hey everyone, Mantamar here, and this is going to be my Q&A video. I want to do another Q&A, but it all depends on how soon I get more questions in. I didn't get many for this video, likely because it was such short notice. I sent out a lot of messages on YouTube to people who are subscribed to me, and it had only been, let's see, 5 days if you count today, so it was likely short notice. But again, I want to make another one, so the sooner I get more questions from you guys, the sooner I'll have another Q&A video out. And to start off with the Q&A, I have it here on my phone directly from my email. Let's see. The first one is from Captain Rated R. His first question is, what would you like to see in the Man of Steel Man of Steel sequel if Man of Steel is successful in theaters? Two things. Assuming that they don't start the romance between Lois and Clark, or more specifically, assuming that they, in the reboot, that they don't do a love triangle, because I pretty much hated that in the old films. I felt it was done to death, where Lois Lane was in love with Superman, Clark is in love with Lois, but Lois doesn't really notice him, and essentially he's competing against himself with his alter ego for Lois's affection. And also Lois and Clark as reporters. I mean, we got a smidge of seeing them as reporters in the Superman Returns, and Smallville tried it a little bit. Sometimes there would be some stories that would tie in with the overall plot, like of the villain for the episode, or the big bad for the overall season. That was interesting. I would like to see them do a little bit of that, but not so much. Not really involving a villain for the story, but just any article for the Daily Planet. You know, because we're accustomed to seeing Superman in action, but we don't really get an even amount of time to see Clark Kent as a reporter, and of course Lois Lane as a reporter. Most of the time she's involved with Superman in the films, so I would love to see them as everyday reporters a little bit in the sequel for that. And let's see, the other question is, if you could pick Superman villains for future Man of Steel sequels, who would they be and why? One of them would be Parasite. I really enjoyed the portrayal of Parasite from the Secret Origins comic book by Geoff Johns. Well, seeing a little bit of Parasite from that reboot, and him and from the Superman the Animated Series, the Justice League cartoon, and from one episode of Young Justice in season 1, which involved a Robin-centered story. I would like to see him as a central villain for a sequel. Another which really intrigues me is Gog. Those of you who are not familiar with the character, Gog is somewhat of a time traveler character. He goes through time in different dimensions, trying to track down Superman and kill him. And his backstory is fascinating to me, which draws me in as a unique villain, because in a sense he's a misguided person in my point of view. His backstory is, I believe his parents died in a nuclear explosion in Kansas. Superman was not able to save his parents, but he did manage to save Gog, who I don't recall his name from the comics, just that his alias is Gog. And from there, as a young boy, he grows up to become a minister and views Superman as a savior, as a false idol to worship. He even has a church centered around Superman as someone to look up to. And this leads to Superman finding out about this, and he drops by where he is, talks to him saying, hey, listen here, I'm not perfect, I'm not a god for you to worship. But, he breaks it to him that, well, he shouldn't view him as a religious idol, someone to look up to in that sense. This bothers him greatly. He goes from viewing him as this great hero as a demon. And I believe that comes into him blaming Superman for the death of his parents, not saving them. And he ends up creating this staff, if you will. And it has the ability to have him go through time and space, and he visits himself as a kid and gives himself this false narrative of saying, Superman is evil, he has to die. And from there, he goes through time trying to kill Superman. Sometimes he's successful, sometimes he fails and ends up going to a different part in time to try to trap Superman and kill him. He's I really enjoy that tragic storyline of the character and would like to see it portrayed in a sequel. But overall, those are the two that at the top of my list I would really like to see in a sequel. But overall, any villain except Lex Luthor, because he's been done to death in the films. He was on Smallville for nearly a decade. He was on there for 7 years. Even though Michael Rosenbaum did a great job, in my opinion, with the character, just done to death. I want to see more different villains to explore. Maybe even create some new ones, because Superman Earth 1 created a brand new villain, which was interesting. So yeah, as long as it's not Lex Luthor, I fully welcome it. Okay, next is let's see, Ash ED65. He's I do a podcast with him weekly. His first question is, do I smoke cigars? No, I don't. I don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke anything, I'm drug-free. Never been pulled toward one to smoke at all. Maybe it's because I never hung around a bad crowd, but I'm not knocking people who smoke. If you want to, it's your right. do what you want. I'm not judging here, but yeah, I don't smoke anything. And let's see, have I seen panty and stocking with garter belts? I've seen your review for it, and I've seen a trailer for it. I don't recall which series I saw it from, but I mean, I'm not entirely sold on seeing it. I mean, I'm not saying I'll never see it, but just the fact that Chris Sabat is voicing the character on there, and the animation style has me hesitant. I mean, if you could give me a few bits and pieces to say why you like it, if it has a storyline to it, because that's what draws me to these adult animes. You know, Cat Planet Cuties has a great overall story for its anime. Sekirei, which I got done watching season 2 today before I went off to work this morning. I heard that they're gonna have a season 3, which, you know, I can't wait to hear when that will be completed and released, because the way how they wrapped up season 2, it's open-ended, so it can go anywhere when it comes to story. And I'm currently in the middle of Heaven's Lost Property. Haven't got to season 2 yet, but so far I'm enjoying that. If it's got a good storyline and some, you know, points that you can tell me that says, you know, hey, this is why I consider this a good anime, I'll consider watching it. But, you know, right now I'm holding reservation and waiting. And finally, let's see. There's one more person, and that's Timphiibus. I hope I pronounced your screen name correctly. He's got 2 questions here for me, but they're along in paragraph wise, and since I'm going to be elaborating my answers here, I don't want to, you know, waste too much time in going into great detail, because I mean, it's a lengthy paragraph, 2 paragraphs to be exact here. I mean, it gives this point of view across, which, you know, I tip my hat. If I had a hat on, I'd tip it. But his first question here is, he's basically giving an analogy of, if somebody created a brand new game, and no matter how great the graphics, how realistic they look, how the gameplay was, that they didn't bother to play it, and instead went with the typical businessman in suits shooting other people, who would be to blame? The gamer or the developer? Now, for me, it comes down to it depends on the situation. If the gamer is ignorant and doesn't research the game, or if they complain about it and still keep buying it even though nothing has changed and it's the same substance of running around shooting people with nothing new to add, then they're at fault. And believe me, there's at least one time I can recall that I've been at fault, and it was the Street Fighter versus Tekken, and I learned a lot from that, blowing $60 on a game that I assumed would be something, and it wasn't. It wasn't anything as I was expecting, and hated the game, which, you know, told me right then and there, I need to research games, and I do now. If you know, I gave that example, you know, if they're complaining about, if they complain about it and still buy it, or they just don't bother to keep up with it and just keep buying it, then they're at fault. If it's for the developer's fault, it's if they just keep creating the same game, not making anything new, despite people, you know, voicing their opinion about it and saying we don't like this, we want something different, and they don't listen to the consumers, then they're at fault, the developers. And Tim's second question to me, do I agree that money for cheap success doesn't mean anything? Yeah, I mean, in regards to if the studios are keep popping up the same thing, which is remakes, 3D, overusing CGI, that to me, it doesn't matter the amount of money that they pull in. It cheapens the hard work. I mean, granted, I mean, it again depends on the situation. And Cynthia Ibis said that he brought up Michael Bay. And I fully agree with you, Temp, about about Michael Bay. He is right up there in the list of directors who are horrible, in my opinion. This includes, let's see, because I blanked out there for a moment. M. Night Shyamalan, he's a horrible director. There's very few films with him that have been good. Which, well, one that I tend to like was the film Devil. I believe that's the name of it, where it involves a group of people in an elevator and they're being killed off one by one, and the idea is that the devil is inside one of those people, you know, spiritualized, you know, as a spirit. The devil is inside one of those people, and each one of them is guilty of something, and it's like a whodunit, because nothing is outright specific there on who exactly is killing. One by one, they're killed off, and it's revealed at the end who it is. I'm not going to say, because I don't want to spoil that for anyone who hasn't seen it. And, you know, of course, with Michael Bay, there's the Transformer films. You know, that's lazy filmmaking, because, you know, it's not representing something that was a part of my childhood, which was Transformers. You know, the 80s cartoon, and, you know, perverting it, so to speak. And, you know, I mean, Shia LaBeouf, I mean, he's horrible in that. I mean, in the Transformer films, and even as horrible as Megan Fox is as an actress, at least she had some experience over the lingerie model that was in the third film. You know, and, you know, people who twist around the mythology of franchises that turn them into films, that kind of cheap success I hate. And the people who try to take the easy route in making a film, like relying on a remake, but with a remake it depends. If it's done right, if it's been a good length of years since the prior film, like if it's 20, maybe 30 years since a prior remake, I welcome a remake if it's in that standard. But if it's like 5-10 years, no. I'm also sick to death of 3D, and 3D is only being done because people watch films online, whether they download them or stream them. I can see why they're doing that because of that aspect. They need to get people in theaters, but again, just come up with original ideas. Don't rehash the same thing. I mean, that's lazy filmmaking, and people who aren't aware of that and still go and see the films for that, that's lazy success in my opinion. So yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I hope I gave some relevant answers here to these questions, and again, I would love to do another Q&A video. Yeah, you know, the sooner I get more questions, like I said, come in, you know, the more questions that come in, the sooner I can do another one. And I think the reason why I didn't get many questions here is because it was, you could say it was short notice. 4 or 5 days since I sent out the messages, but here I'm making it clear that if you want me to do another Q&A video, send in more questions and I'll make another video ASAP. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and until my next video, see you later.